What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the BREWtally Speaking Podcast. I am one of your hosts, John, and with me, as always, is Daniel Terry. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great, man. I'm actually drinking beer tonight. Not a whole lot of it, but enough.
I will be getting there. Currently, I found these new Lipton green tea watermelons that are fucking delicious.
That sounds delicious. Yeah.
So I've been drinking the shit out of those lately.
I'm into that.
Speaking of things that are fun and delicious, that's kind of a terrible segue, but you know what? I don't give a shit. This episode's guest is Michael Barr, vocalist of Volumes. I'm just going to preface and say that this was done right after I did those like super long chats with Jesse from Misery Signals and Jesse from Killswitch. So I was just in a full-on, like, let's have a conversation kind of mode when we were doing this. Good, bad, or indifferent. The nice thing is really this was based around the lyrical content of their song Pixelate, which is kind of just based on, you know, social media and kind of the pros and cons of the world we're kind of living in based on 24-hour news cycles and so forth. And so I was just like, dude, you just want to kind of shoot the shit about that and just kind of see where it goes. And he was down, so that's pretty much what you're going to hear.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I really enjoyed it. Like I said, I'd love to go into it at some point, but that was actually one of those interviews that I was like, man, I kind of wish I was been in there to kind of interject, you know, a little bit here and there. So, but it's cool. I think it would have been 3 hours had that happened. So yeah, no, I appreciated it, and I'm stoked. I mean, I like the two new singles, and have always liked Volumes. So like it's just one of those. It was cool to hear his perspective on stuff. It was cool how you just jumped in and just started talking about real stuff like immediately.
Well, like I said, like, you know, I knew going into it when we got the press release for Pixelate, the video and so forth, which actually, funny enough, there's a smattering of people that I actually know that worked on that video that I didn't know were working on the video until way after the fact, which would have been cool to kind of bring up too. But it was just one of those things where it's like, you know, like right now we've kind of been in this mode where a lot of people are dropping singles, but there's no album in sight, although you know that there's an album coming. So it's like you don't really want to get caught up in like, well, let's talk about this thing that you don't really have a release date, you don't have any information, and then we're going to get a 1-star rating, and then some dude's going to be like, it's clear you don't like Volumes with Michael back in the band, that much is obvious, and then I'm going to have to like get Michael and talk about everything else that he's ever done. That's a long inside joke.
What was your first art class?
Yeah. But all of that said, you know, it was just really cool, you know, going to Amy, you know, the band's publicist, and just kind of being like, here's kind of what I'm thinking, like, let's just have an off-the-cuff conversation about basically the themes that are represented in the songs that they put out, but just kind of have a real conversation about it as opposed to pushing something. And, you know, Dan and I have talked quite a bit about how sometimes this is sort of the sweet spot to find a band person in, because you don't feel like you have to plug something. Typically they have time to talk because they're not, you know, on a big press junket. So it's kind of one of those where it's like you're kind of just in a really nice spot to have a good long conversation. And as long as it's good and the person's not trying to be like, all right, I gotta go, it can kind of be more advantageous to kind of have these things. And like I said, I was in that mode of just long form chats and just kind of letting them go where they go. But I had a lot of fun, and I know Michael did too. We chatted for probably another 20-30 minutes after this was done. So we almost hit that 3-hour mark.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I would have loved to have heard the other stuff. I just think he's got a really interesting perspective on a lot of this stuff, and you know, and it very much, like you said during the interview, John, that like, you know, you and I have been talking about this stuff for a while, on and off. So I mean, it was like so perfectly on brand. Like I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. This episode's kind of long, and we're probably going to talk a little bit more about the finer details of the actual episode. So we'll go ahead and get into my conversation with Michael Barr of Volumes. We'll talk to you on the other side of it. So I have the pleasure of talking to Michael Barr, vocalist of Volumes, whose latest single, Pixelate, is out now. The band had self-described Pixelate as being about consuming and ingesting too much social media news, and also explaining that it's about the negative influence that these platforms, applications, and publications have on us today. For those that maybe haven't been aware listening to our podcast, we have definitely been touching on that subject for about a year and a half intermittently, and I thought it would be a really great opportunity, especially in the midst of a pandemic where a lot of of us are just inundated with this shit every single day, 24 hours, to talk more about that. So Michael, thank you for coming on. And man, what a time to put out a song that just feels like it is so encapsulating of every fucking thing 2020 is kind of about.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy because we're just, I'm in LA, and right now, we're going through, like, I guess it's still the first wave of this whole pandemic and COVID-19 situation, but I guess the second shutdown of the first wave, I guess that's what's going on.
1.5.
Yeah, I know. It's insane. So yeah, it's just like, it's all we have is like a screen, whether it's your phone or your TV or your screen in your Tesla, like what have you, if it's a screen on your fucking fridge. And I'm just like, dude, like, we all need to be really cognizant more than ever. And I feel like it's a culture thing too, where it's like social media and, like it's one thing, limiting screen time. That's like, everyone can do that. And that's like a wellness thing, almost like a trendy thing to do at times. But I feel like, the social media thing and how that's like changes people, and that's the part I hate. And like, I could talk about the song forever, but that's basically what I wanted to talk about was, especially living in Los Angeles, it's like you see the demise of all these people. And when it comes to social media, living here, and it's kind of like watching people slowly go crazy, and you feel bad for them. It frustrates you. You don't like watching it. It's cringeworthy. And I'm like, don't get it sometimes. I do get it as like being a part of the music industry and like utilizing platforms and getting, your product out there, and more power to you if you make money off it, all that. But in certain situations, I just don't understand it. And I just feel like now more than ever, we need to like support the right people and like give our time and give our money to the right people with the right platforms and all that. So it's kind of a blend of both those things of, being really aware of like what you're ingesting culturally, musically, online, all that stuff. And also like, put the phone down, get outside, vibe with nature type thing.
Well, I think what was kind of interesting in thinking about, as you're kind of talking about living out in California, and I don't exactly know where, but, in my one trip out to LA, it was kind of surprising to see how inundated we were with advertisements for TV. At a bus stop, it's like, and we also happen to be around nomination season or whatever, so that probably added a little bit more to it, but it was like, we were staying in a pretty new, really nice hotel in WeHo, and like there was a giant fucking ad that took up like one side of a giant like hotel or whatever next to us for a TV show that was coming out. All the bus stops had, TV shows or things on YouTube or whatever, and it just seemed like, I'm used to the average like try this beer or, whatever advertisement you see along the road, but it's like out there, it's like on crack, and it's just like, well, yeah, no shit, no wonder everyone kind of feels like they can't keep up with anything because you're constantly being pitched things that you are supposed to be watching, or to their point, for your consideration. And it's like, I just feel like if I lived out in something like that, in that area, I would just be almost like, I'd want to be a recluse, like just get away from everything because it's everywhere.
Yeah. I'm actually in Toluca Lake on the cusp of Burbank. So the west end of Burbank, the east end of Toluca Lake, and that's right across from Warner Brothers. So like from my apartment, like right now I'm looking at like 5 to 6 giant movie posters from my living room of like, I don't know there's like The Flash and Scooby and all the stuff that WB is like obviously promoting.
Right.
So I get it, and like I've lived here my whole life, and I've lived around Hollywood my whole life, and I've kind of just numb to those things. Like it's delved me, if anything, further into like more like, obscure films, obscure types of music, obscure types of entertainment or whatever. Because you do see it all the time, and it's like, you're so close to the premieres and all that stuff, and just like, people and people's kids who's, their dad is like an exec at this, entertainment firm and all this stuff. So it's like, kind of just like, yeah, whatever. But I couldn't imagine like if you were really affected by it and like had, your you were swayed by like seeing ads all the time. Like that does happen, you know, and it's just like, yeah, that's definitely not something that I feel like companies should be doing. And kind of like, I don't like that. One thing I don't like is when a company will like, their agenda is just everywhere. And it's kind of, and it honestly bleeds into, this is kind of specific, but what's going on out here is a lot of like tech companies, specifically like Snapchat. And I think what's the other one? I think the other one is
TikTok.
No, it's YouTube. I think
okay.
What they're doing is they're going into like these communities, like Venice, for instance. Snapchat's in Venice, and like all the ghost insignias are like secretly everywhere. So it's like if they have a building, it looks like, you know, like the cool thing now is like not to know exactly what's going on. Like it wouldn't have a huge sign that says Snapchat, but like they'll have it in the sidewalk every couple of steps in front of their, completely wrapped around their whole like, you know, 3-mile campus. And then the ghost will be in the stone. So it's like people in Venice are like, dude, this is insane. This is so invasive. You know, like your logo's just everywhere, like this little ghost, you know? So, and YouTube's kind of doing the same thing. And with their offices is branding that logo. Disney does it out here in Burbank. There's Mickey Mouse stuff like secretly everywhere. And then you kind of, oh, this is a Disney building because it's like in the fucking street or whatever. That kind of stuff is like, you know, people fight back against that stuff. That doesn't necessarily bother me that much, but, you know, that also goes with like, you know, billboards and ads. Like, geez, there's a lot, and there's a lot of the same ones. And I don't know, a lot of material to get that stuff made. It's just, I feel like worst thing is when I see a billboard that's just been there and it's like March and like, you know, now we're in like July and it's from March and it's just been sitting there rotting in the sun. I hate that. So.
Yeah, I always wonder if someone just got a really good deal on that billboard, or if they just kind of forgot about it. And they're like, oh fuck yeah, that billboard over wherever, that guy either owes us a shitload of money, or that person owes us a shitload of money, or we need to take that down and get someone else up there.
Crazy business though, like lots of money in just owning a billboard. I do know that. I actually know someone that owns, that's like their family business. They just own billboards like throughout LA, and it's like, yeah. Crazy. It's like owning a parking lot kind of for advertising.
Well, what's kind of interesting even about that, you know, in dealing, and I'm sure you deal with it on a much more larger scale than I do, even with, you know, doing this podcast. But, you know, like we recently started getting to a level where we'll have some advertisers come on, and then you got to kind of figure out like, you know, like someone might be like, hey, you know, we'd like to advertise on your show. What's the going rate? And you're like, oh, fuck. And you kind of have to put a dollar amount to it, which is really weird and awkward. But then the flip side of that is you don't want to undervalue yourself because you've built something that has value to someone, obviously. But then adversely, the thing you have to do is like start realizing that not only is whatever the thing you're doing sort of an advertising market opportunity, but then you even have things like your social media and so forth, which then it's like, well, if you have X amount of followers, you do like a sponsored post, or you do like if you have a website like we do now where you can put some of these things, it's like, okay, like now that would be worth X, Y, or Z to somebody, so therefore I could ask for more now because I have a bigger platform and more mediums to share these things. And it's something that I never really ever thought of until, like, I always just was like, dude, I just want to get to a point where I can make money to break even with some of the investments, like the podcast hosting costs, like boom, break even with that, maybe even getting some new gear, or break even with what I paid, which probably will never happen, but it's just one of those things where when you start thinking about something from just being a hobby to being a business, for lack of a better term, you start thinking completely differently. And I don't know how much of that for me is the fact that I come from, you know, marketing and retail, or not marketing, but retail and food management. So I'm always thinking kind of dollars and cents, but also having a lot of friends in the industry and various aspects of it where, you know, same thing. Like if it makes dollars, it makes sense. And that's the whole point of anything. Like you could sit there and go like, man, that band's t-shirt is stupid. But then they could be like, yeah, we've done seven runs of them at $1,000 a piece, you know, at $22 sold. And, you know, landed for us, it was, you know, $325. So you do the math, like we're just killing it right now on that shirt. So yeah, it's fucking stupid, and I agree. But when it makes money, like I'm going to keep printing them.
Yeah. I'm definitely not knocking like this strategy, because listen, if I had a huge company or if I had money invested in a huge film, I would be plugging it right now. It's like I totally get the hustle, and I respect it. You know, it's just like that, and that's, you know, the world we live in. It's not, anything new for the last 20 years or so. And, you know, you got to understand it. And somehow that's the way business is done, is utilizing, you know, advertisement and marketing. But I just feel like if it's done tastefully and it's done in the right way, and like maybe people are more like, hey, we know in the past that like we play our commercials like extremely loud and that's illegal. We're not going to do that anymore.
Has that been deemed illegal now? Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, there's a certain decibel level, because I don't know, like, I don't know if you've experienced this, but I know I have, where it's like, you know what I mean? Exactly. I don't have to say. So they made that illegal, and it's like, I still see it from time to time, and that's like, this is how, you know, I'm getting old, because I'm complaining about that, a decibel level, and I'm like in a metal band, and it's during commercials, you know, and it's like, why am I even watching cable TV? Most people would be like, oh God, cable TV, what the fuck's wrong with you? But, you know, it's just, that's an example, and I get it, but stuff like that, I don't like. And I think with as much information is readily available to people and how quick they can access it, it's up to companies to like take some responsibility and like be transparent about, I don't know, their what that, you know, their practices are. And no one will, and that's not part of running a good business. You can't let people know that part of it. But yeah, man, like, it would be cool to just see some, I love when companies, like, you know, they got to do it. I get it. You got to advertise it. You got to put your product out there. Totally get it. I run a business. It's a band. I also run another business. It's the brand. And, you know, definitely in volumes. Like, we put our shit out there. When I'm doing my other thing, I know there's a marketing aspect that scheme that has to do it. But if I was, like I said, if I was a big, you know, baller in one of these companies, I'd be like, yo, our ads are going to be like really funny and like speak to the narrative that no one wants to read this. And I love when, I think there was a commercial I saw where it's like, I forget what it was, but it's like, yeah, I just saw it, and it's, yeah, big deal. Like, they mentioned the brand or something. It's like they slide it in there where he's like, yeah, big deal. It's just like this company, but back to the point, and you get it right away. Like, oh yeah, these people are throwing their company. No, I think it's like... Okay,
because I was going to say, Doritos did something similar where they're like, you know, a lot of ads will show you this, and we don't need to show you, like, our name on anything. Like, we don't need to... And they showed basically... They kind of poke fun at the fact that they were saying all that, because it's like, oh, here's the two, like, Cooler Ranch and Nacho Cheese bags with no branding on it.
Exactly.
And it was, like, all this kind of shit. So it's like, yeah, you're indirectly showcasing that we know what those are because we've seen them so much that you don't even need to put your logo or anything on it, or even mention it by your company by name. We just know what it is.
Exactly. And I like that. That speaks to me like, okay, cool. Like, you know, I'm sure there's a bad person in the top of the company, but at least this whole like advertising thing, like I you know, you get it. You get what I hate and about this side of, you know, buying things, being a consumer. But I think that commercial actually was, I think it was like that brand with it's like a protein bar, and I think it's Ice Cube, and he's just eating it, and he's like, you know, RX bar, like eggs, salt, nothing else.
Yeah, I remember.
And he's like, if you don't buy it, I don't care. I'm still getting paid. I'm iced tea. And like, I was like, oh my God, that's insane. I want to get like 10 of those. So I don't know. That's cool. I think that's an indicator of like, all right, you know, I don't think there's like freaking racist, conservative, religious freaks running this company. Pretty sure that's not happening here. I'm going to give them that money. And I'm not like, you know, in the most respect, I know I'm throwing that out there, but yeah, I'm pretty sure people can guess which way I lean, you know, left or right, definitely left. So shit like that, where you got to kind of do your research now. And like, that even goes to what these companies, some of my favorite food companies out here are giving money to like people I don't want them to. And same, you know, so it's like, you got to do your research because, you know, you got to think about that. And that's something important to me. You know, I wouldn't want to give my money to a cause that I don't necessarily am behind, and to be very, very nice about it. So I just think we need to do that, like, kind of back to the synopsis of the song, just across the board. Like, who are we supporting? Like, who you know, who are we, what music are we listening to? Like, you know, I hope it's people that use their platforms for the greater good and not some like nonsensical trend type of influencer situation, because everyone's an artist, everyone makes music now, and everyone's like has a freaking vlog now. So it's, you know, that's the stuff where I'm just like, be aware of like who's really making music and who's not. And I'm not, you know, putting myself up on any type of pedestal. I'm not Michael Jackson nor is Volume's Metallica, but you know, that's something that we're trying to do, is be more real, more tangible.
Well, I think that kind of speaks, you know, sort of more to the narrative of the song a little bit, and something I've kind of been touching on a lot. I mean, even going back to an interview I did with, or I should say a conversation I did with Doc Coyle a while ago, where, you know, something I've kind of been really focused on when kind of thinking about, you know, social media and how it's affected the world is kind of thinking more about I don't know if it's not a narrative necessarily, but I guess it could be construed that way, is you're creating a false narrative of the life that you think you're leading, because you can, like, if you say something I no longer like, or we have a disagreement, I can block you. And now no matter what you say, I will never see it because it's something I've deemed I no longer view relevant to my quote unquote interests. And the thing that's kind of wild about that to think about is, what will that do to the long term? And I know this may be kind of a really shitty example of what I think it has done is, you know, because people have created a safe space, so they're not used to hearing anything that they no longer want to take in any way, shape, or form. And that's not how the real world works. And right. I think something I've seen where it kind of parallels that thought process is when I go to concerts now. You know, I'm in my mid-30s, and, you know, going to hardcore shows now, sometimes you see people who are like, you know, 2-3 people away from the barricade in the middle of the fucking floor, and, you know, they're turning around, don't touch me. And you're like, I can't help I don't want to touch you. I just can't help the fact that there's, you know, 100 some odd kids behind me swelling forward and moving all around to the music. This is what you kind of signed up for, being up here. And I feel like I see so much more of that now, where people are like, don't be in my space kind of thing. And it's like, I'm not in your space because I want to invade your space. You're in a public space, and this just happens to be the space we are sharing, given the circumstance. And I know that's a very extreme example of kind of what I'm talking about, but I feel like it is one of the perfect representations, because people get so bent out of shape when that happens. And it's like, I'm sorry that you couldn't control this one microcosm of your life, but it's not the end-all be-all either that you're making it out to be. And that, I think, is a broader representation of what we're seeing in the world, where if you don't get your way exactly the way you want it and have the experience in life that you want, people freak the fuck out. And it's like, that's not... I didn't grow up that way. I mean, my whole life, it's like, I don't want people being bullied, but sometimes I do think you learn value in yourself. You become more of a better person, I think, because you have to go through some hard things. And there are just some things I think that, as a result of how I grew up in the time frame I grew up, it has made me a better, more rounded individual, I think, on a lot of levels. You know, because even going to a different point, you know, you were just kind of talking about, you know, having to do research. It baffles me that someone will just take something they see at face value, start sharing it, not even having read the article or read anything beyond a headline, and think it proves their point, when really it's like, did you read any of that? I love when I go on Facebook and straight away, like, someone will share something and you'll see like 7 comments, and as soon as I click on the article to read it, a fact checker thing that says that it's not even accurate. Or even better, when someone shares something from like 7 years ago and I'm like, you realize this is like way fucking old. Like, and so it's just one of those where I feel like that's sort of another problem, is that we have a wealth of knowledge at our fingertips. And, you know, maybe I was grown, you know, from having to do book reports and shit, having to like cite my sources and all these kind of things and do some real research, where it's like, we don't take the time to even do that anymore. Like, we can't even be bothered to make sure the things that we're so sure of are actually accurate.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really problematic. And I get it, because I think what it's done to us is made us like just impatient as like a world. And, you know, I'm 30 and I just turned 30 in February, and which is shit. That was actually a long time ago. So I'm halfway through the year here, but sheesh, closer to 31.
That's all right. I turned 36 in like 2 months.
Yeah, Jeez. Yeah, right. It's insane, man. As you just get up there, it's like it goes so quickly. It's wild. But I think we're just used to like getting our way, and in every single respective situation, I think we're used to getting our way. So I feel like, look, you sit on your phone, you press a button, you get food. You sit on your phone, you press a button, you can pay someone. You sit on your phone, and it's like that bleeds into other situations. That stays in your psyche. So it's like it's like the classic thing when you're in line and like somewhere and someone's acting out because it's not moving fast enough. Like you see that all the time now. We're seeing these crazy white ladies, these Karen people come out of the woodwork when they're not happy and they're losing their freaking identity and they're losing their grounds and their bearings. And that's, I think, a product of what we've done and who we've enabled and who we've weaponized and stuff like that. And it goes to like even a little bit of what's going on like online. I can't even get on Twitter because everyone seems to, like you said, have the solution, have the answer. And none of us do. None of us have the answer. No one has the answer to life. No one has the answer to a pandemic right now. And I think what you are going to see is some of this get weeded out because I feel like we're going through like a cultural renaissance in a sense where I'm hoping things get better. I know the country's divided. I know it seems like it's worse than it's ever been, but I feel like what's going to happen is kind of throughout history that's happened is these renaissances have been executed and they've been, there to change the world. And I feel like that's what we're going to come out of is like, we're going to value things that are a little more wholesome after this, whether it be really minuscule or whether it be on a really large scale. And I hope the narrative and the tone of, social media and people just not, trying to get their way all the time and rushing through life. I mean, dude, driving on the roads out here, let alone, is insane. I mean, people just like, it's like, ooh, I don't understand. Like, what do you realize I'm here and I'm a car and like, you can't just plow through me because you need to get to Whole Foods or whatever's going on. So I feel like that's kind of what we're doing on Twitter. That's kind of what we're doing on Instagram is like, we're just trying to get to the best fucking content we can, which is cool, but like at what cost, right? Like, and that's what I feel like is what we're going to try to get away from and what we're going to try to make a better situation for everybody involved, because social media can be really dangerous. All these things can be really negative and really dangerous the more you don't take a step back and realize how powerful they are. So yeah, I think people are just in a state more than ever right now where everyone's very opinionated. I think it's a lot of fear. I think people are actually scared, and dude, I'm scared too. Like, it's fine. We're all scared with you guys, but it's projection and it's deflection of people not necessarily knowing how to deal with a pandemic, not necessarily knowing how to deal with being uncomfortable because their bubble got popped or their world isn't as they thought it was.
Yeah, I don't know. The other thing, too, that seems to be something I'm noticing, and I mean, I'm somewhat guilty of it, too, but it's usually like when I'm hanging out with a crowd of friends and maybe a conversation goes to something, if I'm hanging out with my wife and her friends who are all in the same like industry and have worked together or are coworkers, inevitably it starts talking about people or things that I don't really know about. So, I'll try to be involved as much as I can, but then if I'm not, then it's like, all right, well, I'm going to look at my phone or whatever. But I even tend to find that like when I go out now, it's like everyone like could be sitting at a table with 3 or 4 people and they're all on their phones, not even conversating. And it's like, the fuck happened, man? Like, we've lost the ability to communicate with people. And, I was kind of reminded of a story a friend of mine was talking about, because thank God I met my wife before like social media dating and all that shit started becoming a thing, like Tinder. Mm-hmm. I mean, we met at a bar, which, they say you'll never meet anyone good at a bar, but we're proof against that. But it is a thing where,
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Going on almost 10 years now. So it's a thing though that, a friend of mine was like, oh, I met this girl on Tinder. She was really rad. And, we were having great texting conversations. And then we finally like met up for a real date and she like couldn't talk. And I was like, what do you mean couldn't talk? He was like, dude, like she just straight up, like I would ask her questions and she'd answer it with like one word or like barely said anything. And I was like, that's so weird. I was like, I mean, if they're able to communicate like in another medium, it would seem like they'd be able to communicate pretty well in person. Because obviously they have the dexterity basically to communicate, vocalize, and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know. That's so weird. And then, you know, we kind of got on this tangent about, I think because we communicate so often through impersonal means, through a screen, basically, you don't have to, you can say whatever you want because you could be more flirty than maybe you would be in real life because you don't have to vocalize and put your voice to those thoughts that you have and see how the person's going to react. And, you know, it kind of really made me start looking at people when they, you know, when I go out and I see people who are kind of casually talking and I kind of listen to some of the things that people are saying. And I feel like people don't really have meaningful conversations or meaningful exchanges in real life anymore. And I don't know how much of that is because who was the comedian that, I think it was Chris. Yeah, it was Chris Rock, like from the Bigger and Blacker CD from forever ago. And he was like, you know when you've been with someone too long, you know all their fucking stories, and they're like, you remember that time? You're like, yeah, I remember the fucking time. And they're like, remember when we did? Yeah, I remember when you fucking did this. Why don't you get kidnapped, have some real new shit happen to you, then tell me about it so I'm fucking entertained. And I realized like how real that is as I've gotten older. And like, say with my wife, like sometimes we'll both tell a story about something and we're like, yeah, I know you told me that like a whole bunch. I already know that story. And it's not that you're trying to be rude, but it's like, I just wonder, because of Facebook, because of all these various forms of social media, if we have overpopulated people's capacity to deal with us as individuals, where you're like, yeah, dude, I saw your 17 posts today in the last hour. What else do you have to tell me? I already read it.
Yeah. You know, I think people, it's more comfortable for people to like control when and how they talk to someone, and you can do that on a phone. And like, it's easier. The expectations there, you can kind of, you know, you can see when someone's writing back to you. You know what I mean? And it's like, I come from
way, dude, you turn that shit off. Don't let them know that they can read it or someone's responding to you.
Right? Yeah. I mean, it's going to sound very archaic and fucking like ancient of me, but like, and it wasn't that long ago, but like, yeah, I was born in 90, and it's like, I come from the days of still, like, I had to like, figure out a way to, or like, you know, call the girl that I like landline, ask her mom if she was there, or if she was, you know, the worst, or like knock on my neighbor's door to see if he was home, because that's the only way I can get a hold of him. And it's like, you know, is Mike home? Yeah. Can he come out and play? Like, does that even happen anymore?
I don't know.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy, and I love that. But I also, since I was born at 90, I also like, it was not cool to do that anymore. And I got that wave of technology that really advanced when I was hit about like middle school into high school, where everything was done by phone. So it was really interesting to like see all that kind of fade. You know what I mean? And I just feel like people want to execute their relationships like that. That's up to them. And also as you get older, you know, people drift apart, and maybe those aren't the people that you want, that you realize, oh, I'm out right now and I actually have nothing to talk about with this person. We're just kind of on our phones. Like, and it's like, that's something to think about. Like maybe you need to compartmentalize this part and stuff like that. And I've been going through stuff personally with people where I'm like, yeah, you know what? I don't really like talk to this person, or like, we don't have any meaningful conversations. Like maybe it revolves around drinking, maybe it revolves around music, and like, you're in the industry, so I have to talk to you, or like, we only meet up at the bar, like I don't really know anything else about you. So it's like, it's yeah, I totally get it. I mean, that's getting a little on the tangent side, but yeah, when you see people clearly using the opportunity of like hiding behind a keyboard in whatever capacity it is, it kind of like says something about them in a sense. And I hope not everyone's doing that. I can tell you when I'm hanging out with my friends, like, it's like, we're not even on our phones, dude. going for it, dude. We're having fun. We're, like, I don't even think I used to be really into like taking photos and being on Instagram all the time. And I thought I was like, well, I'm in a band or I'm doing music and, I need to show my face. And it's like, for me personally, it's like how exhausting. And like, I know people around me who were like, didn't like it. I was always like, yo, like some people aren't into that, and me being 30 and my friends, like some of them being older than me, particularly like my closest friends, I think I'm the baby in the group. Yeah. All of us like would never show like how weird we're getting on a Friday night or like what we're doing and like how we're partying and stuff. It doesn't really happen that much anymore. And like when we do hang out and everyone, people are married, people have kids, I'm pretty domesticated in my situation. It's like we would never be on our phones. We would just want to soak up each other's times and stuff. So yeah, man, I think it's just, you see, it's a mixture of people being young and maybe not like, I'm still young, but like, when you hit 30 or you get up, it's like perspective starts happening and you start caring, priorities start shifting. And I feel like it's just a combination of like, there's more apps than ever, TikTok and whatever. There's so many things to choose from. And I feel like when you're young and like, dude, yeah, if I was 22, if I was 21 right now, I'd be like probably all over every single app, really in the social media, just like I was. But I think it's just worse now more than ever in the trends and like what, I can tell you that none of this stuff was around when I was like 21, 22. I didn't even have an Instagram. It wasn't even like, it was new. So like the challenges and the trends and like all the stuff that you kind of like feel like you have to keep up with, that wasn't even around. And I had Twitter and I had Instagram. So it's crazy. Like, yeah, it's a lot. And I think that's the thing where you just see young kids, really young kids, all you young kids out there, man, y'all need to listen to an old guy like me and my dude right here and really wise up. But yeah.
So it's kind of funny, speaking to that a little bit. Yesterday we were walking my puppy, my wife and I saw these like three girls because I live across the street from an elementary. And so a lot of kids will go and just kind of hang out. And that kind of reminds me of like growing up where it's like, oh, you ride your bikes with your friends and go do something a little bit away from the house just to kind of like get away from a parent's eye or whatever. But I saw them all, what I presumably figured was them doing some sort of a TikTok thing. And I was like, oh, it's cool that, like the three of these like young girls are hanging out and, laughing and having a good time trying to do this thing or whatever. And so, like, in that regard, that's one of the few times I've seen it where I'm like, oh, okay, like, it's cool that they're doing it. But then I was like, what's the adverse of that? Is there, like, a thing where it's like, oh, like, and I'm just coming up with names. So if anyone's offended that I'm using potentially your name, sorry. But it's like, what if someone's like, oh, well, like, Becky sucks. She can't dance or she, isn't talented or whatever. So we're not going to do this. Or, whenever we do a video with her, it has, like, less views. So, like, let's not do stuff with her. Oh, like, I wonder if shit like that happens. But
oh, it happens, man.
But then I was kind of thinking, as you were just saying, it's like, as you were like, oh, I'm a band guy. I feel like it's interesting sometimes, like when listening to, like Chris Hardwick's podcast or whatever, because, and I know he got canceled a while ago, but I don't care. I mean, seems like everything kind of panned out and the truth came out about that. But regardless, they've talked about social media with some people and, some of the bigger celebrities he's like, oh, are you like on social media? You seem pretty well adjusted. And they're like, nope, don't have it. And he's like, oh, that must be so great that like you don't need it. And he goes like, has anyone ever like, has it caused any problems where maybe you don't get a job or like someone's like, oh, we really would like you to have one so you could help promote this thing? And most of the time people are like, no, I don't have it. I never have had it. I don't care. And it doesn't seem to be that big of an issue. But that thought process has made me wonder, how often does like your management or a label go like, hey, you guys like need to see you like tweeting out once or twice a day, the month leading up to a record dropping, or you need to post something on this, like kind of getting on you to maybe be more active than you would want to be because you have to push something. Is that something, or even using a new platform, is that something that you have to endure currently?
You know what? Fearless is pretty, like besides being the best record label ever, I love working with them and always respected them as a record label. They're very, they don't really do that. It's when it's very important. Obviously you're prompted and you're encouraged to, but, we've definitely, as volumes, I think, safe to say, I can speak for everyone in the band, that we've kind of shifted the culture of how we're doing that part and how we do business too behind the scenes, where it's less is more in our perspective.
Right.
And you know what I mean? And I personally have made that shift, going back to like what my priorities were in my 20s and how I treated like using a platform like I did back then, which was like a lot of drugs, a lot of partying, a lot of stuff like that, which I really put out there, which is common, not an uncommon tale, but I just I feel like going through that got me to where I am now, where I'm just way more private and kind of reclusive, and I like being like that, kind of unpredictable, not knowing when something's going to happen or when a song's going to drop or someone's going to go on tour. I love that. And I think it's a blend. I think you got to do both, because I would love to be in a situation where I was big enough, our Volumes was big enough. And I know I said earlier that Volumes is no Metallica, and it seems like I'm shitting on my own band, but I'm just, what I'm trying to say is, you know, we have to have these accounts on Twitter and these apps, because like we scream and we're in a band that's like heavy, and we're on a great label, but it's a subsidiary label and it's a boutique label, and we're not the biggest artists in the world. So we kind of have to pander to it in a sense. So that's why that balance is really important, because it's really smart to be active on social media and active on Instagram when you're not Drake, or your songs aren't on the top 10, top 5 radios. You know what I mean? And that's our situation. We have to work a little harder is what I'm trying to say. Long-winded answer.
No, absolutely.
You know what I mean? And that kind of sucks. And I wish I could just be like Tool or Pearl Jam and just be like, no, fuck off. And like the numbers go up even more, like we are more successful. And that's the goal, you know, to be successful and run a proper business. So you have to pander it to a little bit. But I just feel like, what's the brand? Like, and our brand is, you know, we're going to obviously let you know and connect with you as fans. Fans are the most important thing. But beyond that, you know, we're not here to fucking make this weird, man. We're here to like make real music, and like obviously we're gonna let you in our lives, and we want you to be the fly on the wall and be around all the time, but like we're not gonna be reaching to put content out there that's disingenuous at all, you know. And I think that's the main key is, you know, what you people can really see that more than ever is what's disingenuous.
Well, I think the thing that's kind of interesting about that, and something else we've talked on this podcast about, you know, I think you'll definitely remember this being the age you are, but I really remember when records came out, it's like you maybe got one single and that was it. And you were kind of hoping that it was good enough to make you want to buy the record when it came out for like $25 when, you know, CDs were ass expensive. And it's a thing now where like it's crazy to see the rollout for records now. I mean, sometimes you'll see, you know, like you guys are 2 singles in currently between Holy Water and Pixelate. Last I checked a couple of days ago, there's no record in sight currently. These are just songs that just are. And it's almost kind of like one of those where it's like, okay, so is this more of the just drop songs every so often just to keep people interested and keep your name out there? Or is this part of a bigger thing where it's like, yeah, this is like the 4-month rollout to a record, and these are the first 2 out of the next, you know, if we have 12 songs on a record, these are 2 of the 6 that we're going to have or whatever that are going to come out for, you know, the pre-release kind of. And it's just kind of shocking to see what way the industry's kind of shifting, because I can't figure out if it's going back to singles and just constant content of pushing one single over the course of however long, and then when that one's kind of dying out, like boom, here comes the other one. Because that's sort of what it seems to be. And I mean, you can even look to someone like Bring Me, who's sort of just kind of fucking with the format as a whole, where they're like, yeah, we're doing EPs only. You know, maybe we're going to do a song here and there in between those EPs, and just kind of, they're constantly out there and creating content for their fans, good, bad, or indifferent. But I kind of like what, I think Ollie said it in an interview where he was just like, look, you may not like this one, and that's okay. Maybe you'll like the next one, and then the next one after that, and then maybe you don't like the next one we put out. But it's okay, because you know there's something coming up very quickly. You don't have to sit with that thing for 2 years and be like, I fucking hate this. And I just don't know what way everything's shifting at this point, because it seems like it's going back to singles and constant content, but then it also seems like, no, we're just going to drop singles for the big release of the full record that everyone will probably have already grown tired of by the time the record comes, because you're like, oh, I already heard half of it already.
Yeah. Well, what's great about the singles and back in the day was like, dude, you had a whole adventure like leading up to it, where like, how did you, for me, you know, I was like 9 in 1999 or 10 in the early 2000s, so on and so on. And it's like, to get a record, to get a CD, I had to get on a bike or probably like beg for money or get money somehow. So it starts there, like mow a lawn, do something like that, get the money, get on a bike, ride down to like, I used to go to this place called CD Trader, and it was like discounted used CDs, and they also had new CDs. And that's actually the first place I went when I got stoned for the first time. I went to CD Trader and looked at every single record in the store in slow motion. But yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I just when you said that, I was like, dude, singles, because I would go and get a single. That was so exciting because, you know, maybe the album wasn't out yet, or like maybe you hated the album and you just wanted those singles. You didn't want to get the disc for more money and skip through 7 songs just to listen to the last one or the first one. You just had the single right there. That was so cool. But it is singles now. And the reason you're seeing that shift is because people's attention spans are shorter than ever. And that's also a marketing scheme, is getting the product out there quicker. So it's quicker to make one song. It's quicker. It's easier to do the artwork. It's cheaper to create that for one song, and everything that falls behind that. You know, it's just a lot easier. And also it goes further, in my opinion, because they're like little mini projects or something. They're snapshots. Exactly. That's a great word. They're not like an album, but like it's almost like a glimpse of like that month or that period of like what is happening with the group or the artist. And I love that, because my favorite artists currently are doing that, where it's just a lot of singles, really good singles. And I love that strategy. We're trying to do something like that, especially now that we're in a pandemic, is now we have our whole schedule that got toppled, basically. So we've had to realign the album and figure out a better date to put it out. So there's going to be a chunk of time where we're probably going to get into fall, get into the tail end of the year, where, you know, we're going to have a lot of like a big lull. So we're going to be trying to push a lot of singles based on that fact and using that format. And we wouldn't want to do it any other way. And we've had conversations about, you know, a lengthy album or putting out another EP. And it's like, I don't know if that is like, you know, like my biggest piece of advice for any like young band or artist listening is like, I would not put a long album out or a long format anything unless it's visual, unless it's like, you know, and even at that, you don't want to put like a 15-minute vlog out. But it's really important not to be like, oh, we're a band and we're going to put out a 12-song album as our first song. Like, that's the wrong move right now. Maybe it was a good move back in the day or when music was different. But right now it's like the best tactic to gain people's attention is putting out singles or really short songs that have a lot of ammunition behind it as far as like content and visuals and stuff like that. And, you know, I'm in favor for it because I don't like albums that are really long when it comes to genres of music that I don't feel like it translates well. Like, you know, like Grateful Dead, awesome. Give me 37 songs, give me 47 songs. Like, you know, Rush, fuck yeah. But like, we don't need, you know, I just feel like it's just adding to the clutter, you know, and that's just my personal opinion. And that's what you're seeing, though. You're seeing, and that's a direct result of bogging people down with like technology and us being used to things happening very quickly these days. And this, like, the music industry is really smart by like pandering to that. And pandering sounds that's not the right word, but
no, I think
pivoting. I don't know, like, you're right. I know. You know, adapting to that and making sure that they evolve, because I'm part of that industry and we're understanding that side of it. And it's been not like a fight, but more of a debate between the band of like, some people in the band want a long album. I'm very much not on that. I'm like, let's do the less more thing, even with our music, because, you know, I don't want to put out like you're not going to see like a 15, 12 track album from the band. It's not going to happen. It's not, we don't want to have to like pick live too. That's another situation. Like, how are you going to play your whole album? What if you like all the songs? What if the fans, like, there's too much to choose from? That can be problematic, you know? But that's just my personal opinion. So no one come after me out there on the freaking social media.
I think the thing that's been interesting about seeing where the music industry has kind of gone is it's actually almost reverted back to the way it was sort of in, like, I'll at least say in the 50s, because I know I can speak to that a little bit more. But I mean, you look at like Sun Studios, between, you know, the stuff they were doing with Elvis and Jerry Lee Lewis, it was all about the single, the 7-inch that you could press, fucking put hundreds of copies in a CD store, and then your marketing campaign to get that song on the radio, get it played, get that person on the road. Granted, I would like to say the touring industry has changed and it's not about people going to see that band with that one song, but I would be lying if I didn't think that still exists to some level. But, you know, I look at that and I'm like, well, I'll be damned if that's kind of not what it's going back to, especially, you know, I know iTunes isn't doing this. I don't think they're selling singles anymore. I could be wrong with that, but I mean, it's like, you know, that was kind of the crux of iTunes at first, was because I think a lot of bands were putting out shit. You know, you'd have the 1 or 2 singles and then the rest of the record sucked and people were tired of spending $15-20 on a record just to be burned. So it was like, cool, for $2 I can get the 2 songs I want and then I'm good on the rest. And I think, you know, the music industry kind of noticed that again, and we're starting to see that. We're starting to see everything go back to pushing a single. And I think as a band maybe that's in your position, and this isn't a slight on you guys, but I feel like it's almost smarter to do that, because in the day and age of smaller budgets to record, smaller budgets for marketing, you know, something I was kind of saying with the Bring Me thing, where they're like, you know, maybe you won't like this. Okay, so you spend the money, you push a single, you see it's not reacting in any way, shape, or form, whether it be on YouTube, the song itself, whatever. Cool. Drop the budgeting costs and then reinvest whatever you did make back into creating the next thing. And then instead of trying to use all that money to push a record, to push, you know, the first week sales and beyond all that, and the, you know, tour supports and all that kind of shit, it's like, if you just kind of are smarter about how you approach it, then you might take an L here and there, but you might have way more successes along the way that will lead to a better and healthier career. I mean, Elvis is kind of interesting in that regard, because I think he only wrote like 1 or 2 of his songs ever, but the dude's got over 30 #1 songs. And, you know, most of it was not on the strength of a full record. I dare anyone to tell me one full Elvis record where they're like top to bottom, perfect. Hell no. Yeah. You got like 2 singles off each one that drove the rest, and it was kind of like, these are the singles we know work. We threw it on a record. People would buy it because it's packaged in a new way. And, you know, there you go. You might have a platinum selling single, but you might have a gold fucking record.
Yeah, and I think that's also just they wanted to save money, and it's like, if someone was like, hey, I want to put 6 songs on this, they're like, we can't even do that. This thing's 7 inches, dude. Like, there's only 1 song going on this. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
that'd be sad.
That and the B-side. So as, you know, obviously as technology got better and you get into the 60s and 70s, especially the 70s, you get great albums and you get reel to reel, and that changed the game, and that you could record for fucking hours. You have all those crazy B-sides from all those bands where you just hear everything. And it's awesome. It's awesome. And I think it ebb and flow. So maybe it's a trend, I feel like, and it's not so much back then. It was very limited. Like, we don't have the technology. We don't have the financial money to do this, like, right? But now that we do have it, you might see like, okay, cool. Like now it's a trend. Like, all right, now we're only going to do singles. Maybe in 5 to 10 years, 20 years, it goes back to the cool thing now is to do long albums, which is, I'm totally not against trends. I think they're great. I don't get why people hate trends so much. I do understand why they do, but musical trends, you know, it's like, what, you can't, the standard you know, there should be a standard, but as far as it swaying, it can't just, like, music meant to evolve, come full circle, you know, back and forth, yin and yang. That's what I really feel. And I feel like for right now, that's just what works best for artists and bands, because I've seen it and I've done both. I put out personally, as a solo artist, I've put out an EP that was way too long. I've made some decisions and that were poor, where it's like, I should have just put out singles. Instead, I tried to make these projects a thing and So I've learned from experience that it's just the best way with right now and the current, fan artist relationship, where that's the easiest, quickest way to give back, most cost effective way to give back to your fan base is pumping out those singles, because they're there and they're waiting for it, and they do support you and they give you money, and that's the coolest thing you could do. And it's great. It's great it feels great. You get things done quicker. So it is interesting. And like, kind of going back, I think you said something about it being like, when you're talking about Ollie and his interview, it's like, he's right, where you get to a certain point where you put out 4, 5, 6 albums, and kids obviously aren't, or, fans aren't going to necessarily love the music because you guys have been a band for so long. And that's the classic cliche thing, like, play your old shit, or the new stuff's weird, it's not as good. It's rare that you hear people say, oh, this album was just as good as the one I love, like the one that I want them to play. That's really rare. But I feel like it's important for kids to understand that. And it was kind of maybe something that they didn't maybe 5, 10 years ago, 12 years ago. I think now, like, readily information, accessible information, kids should know, fans should know how the music industry works. There's plenty of information on the internet of how it works. We're talking about it here, how it works. We're letting, know if people listening didn't understand why they're only seeing singles. We touched on that. So I feel like it's not like a responsibility where the fans like, do your homework and understand how the shit works because I put in so much time. No, but it's there. And, that's why I talk about kind of the inner workings so much with the band, because I'm like, Lord, no one should be hiding anything. The kids know, everyone knows that, like, how movies are filmed. Everybody knows wrestling's fake. Everybody knows, certain things about industry, reality TV, it's generally scripted.
Reality.
There's scripted reality. So to know how the music industry works only benefits you as a fan and the relationship that you want to have with, bands like Volumes or bands like that are on Fearless or Rise or any of our community and our peers. It's cool that you 9 times out of 10, pretty sure, I'm close with a lot of people. I know a lot of people and most of the bands that you guys listen to, and they're going to respond to you. Like that is also a positive with social media, where you can message your favorite singer or your favorite artist or whatever, typically in our community, in our scene, and they're going to respond. And, if you have a better filter and a better understanding of how everything works, how touring works, how the music industry works, how you put out a record, I can just tell you, from being an artist and dealing with fans and absolutely loving talking to fans, the conversations are great, and they go way easier when you don't have to over explain why you're putting the music out and why you're seeing this and why. I will do it. Volumes will do it. We're always there to answer every question under the sun. Yeah. I would love to see that if it's like, that kids educate themselves on how it's done and how it works, because you can, and there was a time where you couldn't. Maybe that was part of why kids were drawn to music. That's why I was, because it's a whole, it's so mysterious. How does all this work? How do they fucking do this? How does someone tour? But now it's like, kids are so smart. It's like, they know exactly, everything about your band. They know everything about you. They know how you tour and this and that. So I just feel like when it comes to the logistics of putting out a song, they can learn.
How much of that, though, do you think is them trying to find a shortcut?
You mean, what do you mean by that?
So, and again, maybe this is my age, but so I'll just say this, and maybe I'll cut this part out, the explanation part, and just go back to your answer to my question, because I definitely have done that. So I have a lot of friends, you know, that are like one of my favorite stories recently because my wife finally kind of got to see a little bit more of what I deal with when I stay and hang out with some of my friends. So we were out at Lost Rages this past year, and Porter from Atreyu, he and I are friends, and so he came out to hang out with me and my wife for a little bit before they had to leave, and so he came out to like where the merch area was, and you know, every probably 2 or 3 minutes we'd have someone come up that would recognize him. I mean, he's got a giant beard, so it's not hard to pick him out. And, you know, you'd have someone go like, oh man, like you sounded really great tonight. Like, you know, my band, blah, 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 whatever. And you always hear someone kind of go like, you know, how did you do it? Or, you know, this, that, or the other. And I almost feel like it turns into a thing of, tell me what you did so I can bypass all the bullshit and get right to the good stuff. And I don't think, I mean, you've seen that meme where it's like local band touring around your area doing this, and then the person stepping like all the way to the top step. Yeah. And it's like, I feel like sometimes when I see some of my friends have these interactions with fans and so forth, or people in bands, I feel like there's a lot of that. It is that they want to know, but I feel like there's a lot more of, I just want to skip all the bullshit and get right to where you are. So how did you do it? And I don't think, and that's something else I feel like is a part of, you know, the internet and so forth. And you kind of touched on, you know, people just wanting things instantly, is I feel like people want that as well with all of these things. You know, they want instant success, or they want to get to the good part without having to endure any of the shit. You know, like I've recently had some people reach out to me and they're like, so how did you get your podcast to get to this level? How did you get this person? How did you do these things? And I was like, dude, it was a lot of trial and error, and I ate a lot of shit on the way. Like, it may have seemed like my podcast kind of took off right away and I had really great guests, but it's also the couple years I did of booking shows, the few years I did of, you know, writing show reviews and so forth, and befriending people, you know, having them stay in my house and just knowing people. And there's like the other 10 years of those experiences that no one sees. So it's like when the podcast seemingly takes off in their eyes, it's like, no, it was a lot of kind of eating shit and figuring things out in other facets, and then kind of applying all the knowledge I've taken from other people and having conversations with them going like, hey dude, like I'll help you out, but I'm only going to do this. And then from there, you need to like figure it out yourself. Like I'm not going to hand pick you or hand feed you everything. And I feel like there's a lot of that now. Like when I see people, you know, constantly talking to band dudes. So that's kind of more what I meant is, do you feel like it's an effort to try to skip a bunch of steps and just get to where they want to be and where they see you being, which, quick little side story that I always think, and I've never told this on the podcast, so I think this is a great example of perception versus reality. So when I had the Browning staying here with me one night when they were on tour with Chimera, their bassist went to go get Papa John's pizza, and I think the delivery driver knew who they were because they had just played in the town the night before, and he was like, oh, are you guys in a band? And I was like, I'm not, he is. And so he goes, oh, I've heard of your band, blah, blah, blah. Is like, what does it take to make it? And I just kind of laughed and went in and got my food. And like, I came back out and I was like, did you tell him that van that we drove here in is where you sleep like 7 months out of the year, 8 months out of the year, that you literally were just begging your tour manager for your $10 per diem for tomorrow to buy the pizza that you're eating today? Did you tell him about how you just got your shit stolen like a couple of nights ago in Missouri? Like just shit like that. Like I was like, did you tell him all those things? Like that's what you have to look forward to quote unquote make it? And he was like, no. And I was like, I would have been real fucking real about it. And been like, you think this is glamorous, but this is the reality of my situation. It's not as cool as you think it is. It is great. There are aspects about it that are awesome, but far and few between at times are the experiences what you think they are.
Yeah. You know, and I think that's really important also for like anyone that's planning on like getting, you know, trying to tour and do this, is like, it's not glamorous, and it's still gnarly when you do get there, and when you do get the bus, and you do get the big tour, and you do get the green room and the hotel and all that stuff. Like, great, still grueling, man.
Now recoup.
Still like, you know, try. Not even getting into that conversation.
Sorry.
But no, it's fine. But you know, it's like try touring Australia. Like, you know, oh fuck yeah! Like I remember we go to Australia, we thought we were big time. Going to Australia, you know, getting, you know, accommodations, you know, seeing the photos of where we're gonna stay, and they treat you really nice. It's a fucking grind, dude. That tour will break your band up. it's a short one, but it's a grind, you know, and you got to be on your P's and Q's, and you have to be on your shit because you're in like another country, and you know that. So I feel like listen, in life, all I've done is succeeded, and then ate shit. And I think that's the roller coaster of life. And it's like it's not. I don't know. Something's up when it's just no one has. You know, all I do is win. All I do is succeed. Like, okay, sure, yeah, right. But you know, I think I love that. I love people's shortcomings. I love people's failures. I love when people talk about those things, because to me, it's those. You know, right? Like my favorite movies are not movies where it's always a happy ending, you know, and I'm pretty sure people can, you know, attest to that too. Or I don't like I love like a movie about an underdog or someone that always, you know, has to struggle. And that's like any good story is about that. So I feel like that's the kind of depiction of how life is and life should be is there's a lot of times, like a lot of dude, you know, I still have so much more to do, and I still have to keep my career going for a long time, hopefully. But anyone that thinks, you know, me as a solo artist or me as Michael and Barr and Volumes, and maybe thinks that, you know, I don't worry about bills and I don't worry about putting gas in my car and checking my bank account. I mean, I did that today. I did all those three things today. So, you know, I feel like that's really, really important also to have in music too, because you kind of the shortcut thing and kind of it guys expecting things to happen quickly and expecting careers to blossom, you know, quicker than they're going to. They're out there, you know, they are typically bands like local bands and opening bands and local acts and opening acts and stuff like that. Maybe managers that are trying to manage you or something like that. That's where I see it. I don't really see it with fans. With fans, it's more of a situation where a lot of cool questions, like people are genuinely, like I can tell, I have a pretty good filter, and I can tell when someone's being like trying to just get the info out of me because they don't even care. They don't really want to talk to me. Or someone that's really like, dude, like I'm in a band and, you know, we want our music to get out there and it's hard. And like, how do you do it? And I'm scared. And it's like, you know, people know they can come up and talk to me about all that stuff. I'm always active and like trying to like give people and help people the best way I can when it comes to them having those questions, because I was that kid. Not as brave as them walking right up to me, but I was too scared to go up to my favorite artist or my favorite local band and this and that, and just, you know, essentially punish them and ask them questions. There's nothing wrong with fans, even if it's like, you know, there's those kids out there that are like, you know, dude, come on, dude, like don't punish me too much right now. Or they're there too, and you try to be as cool and level-headed as you can with, you know, your comfort level and your personal space and stuff like that. But I see it more in personal experience with people that you play shows with and people that you're on tour with, where they know that you're playing a show, they know you're coming to town, and, you know, it's like this, you know, I've had people bait me into coming to their house, and then I get to the house and it's like a TED Talk. They want me to do a freaking TED Talk or something. And it wasn't supposed to be like that. And I go, okay, I know what's going on here. And it's like, that's unfortunate, right? That happens a lot. And that's not okay. You know, I've had some situations where stuff where, I know that someone's just trying to pry and use me as a commodity to get their band bigger or take the photo to tag me into, you know, I've dealt with it all. But it's typically with people that I don't know why they're there in the first place. Yeah, you know, it's like a opening band, or you see it more in like tour in those scenarios.
Yeah, as someone who has punished some people, I know I probably punished Daryl from Glassjaw. My wife was like, "I'm so sorry about him," and he's like, "No, it's cool," and I was like, "No, you're being nice." Like, but I mean, he gave me like an hour of his time, so yeah.
But typically though, it's not. See, that's the thing. Is like when that means you didn't punish because you were like, you know, did I do it? Did I not? Did I punish him? Did I not, babe? Like it's when the person just is like just fucking checked out, and they're just like they are talking at you, not with you, and they want to like, they have all these questions that they want you to answer, but it's like, dude, you're talking at me. Like, you realize, like, I'm giving you my time. Like, this isn't like you don't have to, like, you know, frantically like pound me in the ground with questions. But no, I don't. That 9 times out of 10, like, dudes are stoked when like they can talk to like someone that they haven't been on tour with for like 3 weeks, and I find myself always chatting with whoever's in the green room, like, and yeah, like I have, that's the cool thing about touring, is like you have these conversations, and we don't get recognition online. I mean, sorry, I like, as far as like TV and bands like Volumes, bands like, you know, anyone that's in our community or in our realm, that's part of the recognition, because it's like, we're not the biggest bands again. Like, we're not Drake. We don't have tons and tons and tons of press. So it's like those small interactions, those small conversations for me, like, mean the world and go so far, because it kind of like, you know, I might be having a really bad day, a bad night. You don't know what's going on. And I come and talk to you at the merch table or something, and you're just like, hey dude, like, just want to say this, just want to tell you that you've whatever. And it's like, always, it never gets old. And that's always a good, you know, that's like good press in my mind. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm doing something right here. And wow, like, I get to have this conversation with this person. That's recognition at its finest, in my opinion. All the recognition that any artist needs, you know what I mean?
I think the thing that becomes kind of weird for me at times is like, you know, doing some of these, like especially when they're in person, or, you know, if you end up, you know, getting a phone number, like sometimes I'll start texting the person and be like, hey, like, I'm free now. I know that we were supposed to do it at like 3:00. Like, I have, you know, if you want to get it done now, if you have time, so that way I'm not wasting like your night, cool, I have time, just to let you know. And sometimes they'll be like, you know, sort of a texting relationship starts forming or whatever, and then you kind of get to know the person. And I was thinking about it the other day, where I was like, I feel like that meme, like, I don't necessarily get it because I'm old, but it's like the dude in the glasses, it's anime, the butterfly, and then like whatever the fucking book or thing at the bottom where it's like, is this?
Okay, yeah, I know what you're
so it's like
talking
a lot
about,
of times, right? Like, I feel like the one that I would do for me would be like, interviewer, band guy, are we friends now? And it's like nine times out of 10, it's like, that is sort of what happens, is like, you know, somehow somewhat of a bond kind of forms. And then it's like, when I get done, my wife will be like, oh, who are you texting? I'm like, oh, so-and-so from X band. They're like, oh, still, didn't you just talk to him for like an hour? And I'm like, yeah, I don't know, I guess we kind of hit it off, I don't know. And it's kind of weird, because it's like, you don't really get friends as you get older, like, so it's kind of hard. But then I think the other thing for me that is interesting too about it, and something else I don't think a lot of people make the understand really the relationship when you are friends with someone who's in a touring band, is they may be busy. So if you text them and they don't reply, it's not because they hate you or they're mad, they're probably busy. Secondly, when you go see them at a show, be prepared to only see your friend for like 20 minutes tops.
Right.
And you know, like, there was a time a friend of mine was on tour with Rancid and Pennywise, like 2 bands I don't really care about, but I drove like 3 hours to go hang out with him, and someone was like, how was it? And I was like, I don't know. And they're like, did you not get a ticket and see your friend? I was like, no, I had an all access pass. And you know where I stayed? In the fucking lobby with my friend watching the Yankees game. And I was like, because to me, I went to go see him, I didn't go to see the show. And then they're like, and then you just went home? And I was like, yep, I drove like 6 hours to see my friend for like 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever. And they're like, that's so weird. And I was like, that's kind of what you do. Like, I would hope anybody you're friends with you would do something similar for.
Yeah, I know, right? It's so absurd to some people.
Yeah, I think it just kind of speaks to the fact that some people aren't willing to put in the time into a relationship either.
Sure, yeah. No, totally. I mean, you're a good guy, you're a good friend, and I mean, it's funny because some people would be like, oh my God, what? You didn't watch the show. But like, the more you know, you're pretty close to the industry. I'm sure you've been to tons of shows doing what you do and all that. And, you know, it's not the end of the world that you miss a performance like that. I mean, I love both those bands. Like, I am from Southern California, so obviously it's like fucking Pennywise and Rancid's like the coolest shit ever to me. But I can tell you that I've definitely like had an all access pass, gone to tons of shows, and like necessarily like haven't watched the whole show, but hung out, or like maybe has like literally been like, yo, I'm coming down, but like I can't stay for the show. And
right. Yeah.
Obviously like that's, people go, oh yeah, you probably don't want to because this is all you do. And it's like, sometimes that's true, but I know, it's like, even if like even if you're not like in a singer in a band or whatever, and you just want to like go, that happens to be the place where you can spend time with the person, you know, that's you investing in a relationship. And I can tell you that I definitely, being in a band and having a guest list, I definitely have weeded out certain people in my life, and just, it's great. It shows people's true colors right away. It shows what they want right away. It shows, you know, how they want to get down with you immediately. And yeah, man, it's crazy. I have people that don't come to shows because they know that they're not going to see me, which is like way easier. Like, I prefer that. Or like, and you know, I mean, I would love for them to come, or everyone's always welcome. Like, dude, we have so many people hanging out backstage sometimes, and everyone's like, you know, it's usually family and friends, really close people. So it's a real family, homey environment and stuff like that. Everyone's welcome. But, you know, some people are there and they don't stay for the show. And it's just like, I definitely have those people that have gotten mad at me because they're there and they're like, hey, can you come outside? I'm here. And I'm like, hey, dude.
I'm
like,
at work.
Well, yeah, you know, it's typically like someone that used to watch me at like our fucking home venue. And it's like, yeah, dude, I'll walk off stage. I'll let you in because there's 8 people here. I need 10 people here. Come inside. But it's like, I don't know. I've been at like a major show where like my band or me is opening up like a festival, or maybe not opening up and playing a higher slot. And like, it's kind of like a lot. I don't know. It's rude, I guess, to ask like, hey dude, I'm here. I'm outside. Like, can you come let me in? And it's like, how do you not know that I'm like getting ready? Or like, how do you not know that maybe I don't want to be seen? Like, maybe that's my tactic. Maybe that's my play for this show. And, it's just funny how, yeah, I'm like, dude, come through, come hang out. And I'll tell my friend, and then that, you know, ex-friend will get there, and it's like, oh no, I shouldn't have invited this guy. Or, you know, I shouldn't have invited this person. So yeah, you do learn quick about like, you know, what people expect from you when you're in that position. Typically it's all cool and everyone understands, but you definitely find yourself in some peculiar situations.
Yeah, I realize that a lot of people don't really understand this necessarily, but they just see me at shows. Like, you know, a lot of times my thing on like Facebook will be like, oh, time for, or did the work, time to enjoy the show, or enjoy the like reward of my work, quote unquote. And right. It's like, yeah, I only talked to someone for like 40 minutes, but no one sees the hour or 3 or 4 days of me listening to a band's discography, reading through a shitload of other interviews. Then not only to mention all of the hours I got to put into editing it and then putting it all together, uploading it, getting it all squared away for a weekly release and all that kind of stuff. And it's just like, there's a lot more to it that people don't see. But like, there was a show coming through town and someone hits me up and they're like, hey, so can you get like me and like 7 of my friends tickets for that for free? And I was like, no. I was like, first of all, I'm not even doing anything at that show. Secondly, like, sometimes it's even a stretch for me to get a ticket from my wife, like just me and a +1. And I was like, no one is going to be like, yeah, you and your, like, you +8, no problem, got it.
Yeah.
I was like, that's not really how that works. Like, I was like, I don't think you understand. Like, yeah, these are free tickets for me, but like the band is paying for it indirectly.
I know. Yeah, there's nothing more than I would love to have like a giant guest list and have people over, like have people in your green room and everything. And it's interesting because we've, in the past, when I was in Volumes before I rejoined, we really used that opportunity and that advantage of that guest list and got those times in, and really, like, we partied a lot and did a lot of crazy stuff. And I know that when I left the band, it continued. And I think now, like, we all agreed, like, even when I was touring by myself and I'd have my own green rooms, and typically I wouldn't even have one because of the venues I was playing. They were really tiny, but sometimes they'd have an area and like, I was like, oh, it's a go. And like, you throw a mini party and it's fun. But I know now that we're like, dude, no one is allowed in the green room. Like, it's going to be like twerking, like you have a gym section, your yoga section, and then like just chill vibes, like no party, nothing. And like, we're really, really, even though we don't know when we're going to tour again, but we were close, we were getting there. And we did do 2 shows And one show we were in Japan. That was my first show back. We played a really big festival. It was amazing. And we had this green room, like the nicest green room I've ever had. And it had a full fridge and freaking beer and alcohol. And I mean, like everything that you would want or that I've ever imagined or like wanted was in this green room. And like, I was just like, dude, we need to I don't even want to ruin this place. Like, it's just, I was like, we need to, as a band, like when we tour and we get on these tours, obviously that aren't going to happen right now. But, we had a huge conversation. Like, we need to be a band that's like, doesn't destroy green rooms, doesn't party, doesn't like have that problem anymore with like the hecticness of those times that we used to have and all those situations that I'm used to being in and having just not being able to focus on the show because a million people are trying to get in or something like that. It's fun. It's cool. I've had it happen. But, if you're really trying to do it and you're trying to be like the best you could be on stage, you get someone to handle that for you, or just don't, keep it mellow, keep it chill. I think, if any good band right now, the key to success, any good band that's, that has a bunch of 30-year-olds in it, or even a bunch of 40-year-olds, I could tell you that much, that it's boring backstage. I could tell you that much. It's probably pretty boring backstage.
Yes, it is. I think one of the last tours like that, where it had been full of people who had been doing it for a very long time, we were all talking about like Property Brothers or like flipping houses and shit, like just like weird adulty shows like that. So it's not as adventurous as it may seem like it is. Like when people are like, "Can you get me back there?" And I'm like, "What do you know about Property Brothers? How caught up are you?" No, I'm sorry, you can't come back.
Right. They're like, "What?"
Kind of wrapping up. Where can everyone find you and or the band online?
Yeah. So we have our Twitter, we have our Instagram. Our Instagram is @VolumesLA. Our Twitter is VolumesBand, @VolumesBand. And despite me kind of being apprehensive about being on the internet and stuff like that, we're backpedaling now. We're really we are active, and we do put a lot of information up there. So you can find everything you need on those accounts, and then follow me and follow the guys in the band on their personal accounts. We're on there a lot, and right now we're actually in the middle of recording, so we are uploading and posting a lot of content of us like in the studio and getting things done like on Zoom, and it's pretty interesting. It's cool for like anyone listening that wants to see that stuff. It's definitely being circulated right now. Where our goal is to put more content out too. As much as I bashed on stuff like that, we're trying to put out some more stuff, and we're really trying to utilize our YouTube actually going forward, and get some good vlogs going that are done tastefully for the fans. It's something that we're really important on. So Volumes Band, Twitter, and Instagram is Volumes LA.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for taking the time. Not sure what you were expecting, but I had a fun time chatting, and have to do it again sometime. Maybe when either for an Instagram Live thing that we've been kind of fucking around with lately, or maybe if the world gets back to normal, do one of these in person or something.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. My pleasure. You have a good night, bro.
So that was my conversation with Michael Barr of Volumes. Like we kind of kept saying in the intro there, this is just a real fun, loose chat. And actually, this was kind of, not only was this right in between me doing the interviews with both Jessies, but this is also kind of right in the crux of us starting the Instagram Lives and so forth that we did, which are very much typically like this, where it's just, here's kind of an overall theme. Let's just kind of go and see where it takes us. And there's something so kind of freeing and exciting about not knowing where your conversation is going to go at any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, no, it was cool. And I really, like I said, I really enjoyed this one. And that's not just me coming on, being the co-host and being like, yeah, John, you did a great job. Here's a big old, a big old award or whatever. Like it was literally like I was actually very engaged whenever I listened, and I found some of his stuff, some of his ideas to be very interesting. And I don't know if I agreed with all of it, but like that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. I've become a lot more aware of some of the branded marketing that's kind of been leveled at us, I think, at times. Like, I didn't know the whole thing about Snapchat, like where you're kind of getting these pseudo underground society type things, like where it's like, here's a big building. What's there? Well, I mean, if you don't know, you don't know. But based on all the Snapchat ghosts and shit like that, you're like, oh, it's their nondescript branding of sorts. But it also kind of reminds me a little bit of like Fight Club. With like, their whole sense of like they're kind of everywhere. You don't talk about it. If you know kind of a deal. And it kind of gets a little creepy when you start thinking about shit like that. Like, companies shouldn't have almost a Fight Club mentality when it comes to how they're branding and marketing.
Yeah, it's very strange. Like, the Disney thing was weird. Yeah, the Snapchat thing was weird. Like, the Disney one, not so weird, just like, having hidden Mickeys, because like that's fun. But yeah, it's very strange. The way some of these companies quote unquote advertise without actually advertising, it's creepy. I don't know.
Yeah, it's have you ever been to, and I always get these mixed up, whatever one's in Orlando, is that Disney World?
Disney World is in Orlando,
okay.
Which I have been. I have been to Disney World 2 times.
So have you seen all the things that they do for the children there? Like how they put certain things that, like, if you are like 3'6", you'll notice that like there's a crown on a wall behind the thing, but if you just happen to stand just so, the crown will appear on a statue from afar. Like little weird things like that, like things that you wouldn't think of, but like when you know that there's little like Easter eggs like that, you're kind of like, that's cool, but then you're also like, who thought of that?
Yeah. I mean, I understand it though. Like, I can't wait to take my kids to Disney World. You
just want to drink at Epcot.
I do, and I have. So the best thing to do at Epcot is to go to each different nation and drink the beer from that nation. Now, it's like the Bud Light of whatever that nation is, but it's, there's a lot, so you're good.
Yeah, I was not old enough to drink when I went there, and I don't do rides, and some of the VR rides in Universal kind of freak me out. Wow. I don't know if motion sickness is necessarily the thing, but it was a bit much. Like the Spider-Man ride at times, like you feel like you're going to fall down a whole bunch of stories and stuff like that. You're like, that doesn't feel very good.
I just learned a new thing about John.
Oh, I'm terrified of heights. That's why it's funny. If you go on my Facebook, you'll see a picture of my wife and I at the like that tall tower in Chicago where they have like the plexiglass thing and you can step out and look straight down and you're like 80 some odd floors up. And I was okay getting into that. I didn't look down. When I went to get out of it, I looked down real quick and I was like, oh shit. And I said that real loud in front of a bunch of kids. My wife, who I don't think is really necessarily afraid of heights, just didn't trust the thing. And so there's a photo of her and I in it. And you can look at her grabbing my hand and she's just like got a death grip on it. So, I don't know. Maybe as I'm older, maybe I would enjoy some of those things a little bit more, but I just have weird quirks, and I'm not much for things going fast and wind in my face and all that kind of stuff.
I need to send you some pictures of when I used to install satellite TV.
Nope, I'm good.
Of like some of the houses. Yeah, dude, I used to freak my wife out because I'd go all the way to like the top of this like bell tower basically, and I would always take a roof like a shot from the roof. Just you could just see my little cable installing truck like way down there. And yeah, she's always just like, yeah, I'm not sure if you're sending me that because you're trapped or or what the deal is. But yeah, and I love heights actually. Weirdly enough, you would think that John would be the thrill junkie if you were just looking at us, and then I would be the one that plays it safe. So that's interesting, that kind of yin yang that we've got going on here with that, because I love roller coasters and all that stuff.
As we mentioned, this episode's kind of long. I think as of right now, all I've done is leveled the interview. I haven't really edited it, and I don't really know that I'm going to. So I'm just going to kind of start wrapping this up, just in the event that this is going to be pretty much an unedited interview, more of a chat, really. But if you would like to keep up with Volumes, it's simple enough. Volumes Band on Facebook, Instagram at Volumes LA, Twitter at Volumes Band. If you would like to keep up with Michael, you can find him on Instagram at Michael_Barr with 2 R's. And Twitter, you're going to love this one, very on brand for us, at the Barr with 2 R's.
Perfect.
And Dan will tell you where he can be found on the internet. It may not be as cool of a name as At the Barr, but...
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think Discuss Metal's pretty cool. You can find my other podcast at discussmetal.com. I can be found under Discuss Metal Dan on most social media platforms, Instagram. On Facebook, I'm just under Daniel Terry, and on Twitter, I'm also at Discuss Metal Dan. So yeah, I mean, I'm all over the place, man. Just reach out and say hi, or don't. It's fine.
And if you want to find us, it's simple enough. The central hub for us is at brewspeakpod.com. Anywhere and anything that you could possibly want us for, it'll be there. Peruse around. We even have our friends up there. You can go check out Discography Discussion, Talk to Me podcast, Good Company podcast, whole bunch of cool shit. So go support us over there. It means a lot. And speaking of support, I'd like to keep the support for our sponsors going. If you want to head over to rockabilly.com, get you some awesome swag, which includes just about anything and everyone you've heard on this podcast. If you are into pop culture things, and the best thing is it's 100% officially licensed. You don't have to worry about the quality of the garments that you're ordering from them. They are 100% officially licensed. So what that means is when you buy something, it also supports the band that you're actually trying to support as well. So it's a win-win for everybody. Use our code BREW15 and save 15% off your total purchase order. Lets them know that you're supporting us, and for them supporting us as well. If you would like to keep up with On Point Pomade, go to onpointpomade.com. Keep your beard and hair looking on point. Use our code BSP15, save 15% off your total purchase order. I mean, if you can't notice a theme, we love saving you money. We want you to look good as well. And last but not least, maybe you're not a good morning person, but the Bean Bastard Coffee can help you with that. Head on over to thebeanbastardcoffee.com, pick up some delicious coffee, and support those guys. They are doing a lot of cool things right now if you follow them on their socials at the Bean Bastard, Facebook and Instagram. And with all of that said, we're going to wrap this up because we're getting ready to go live on Facebook and YouTube doing our top 5 new metal songs with Andrew from the Ghost Inside. So with that, I am John.
And I am Dan.
And for the BREWtally Speaking Podcast, we will talk to you all next week.
Fucking sucked. Oh, that fucking sucked. Shao Kahn, what'd you think?
That was pathetic.
Yeah. Yeah. Coach, what'd you think?
Fucking embarrassing!
Okay. Okay. I mean, I knew it was gonna fucking suck, but I think those guys were a little rude. Austin Powers?
How about new?
Okay. I thought we were gonna get the Austin Powers vote. We did not. John, use that for your podcast. It fucking sucks. But you knew what you were getting into. It's your own fault. It will result in less listens. You're going to see a decline in listeners if you start the show with that. You're going to see 30 seconds in, the number will plummet. And I will be there at the bottom of the plummet saying, I fucking told you, don't use this fucking riff. It sucks. But it's yours.